so far.
All right. And we are live. Welcome to the BrainDrive weekly development call live stream. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, where we update on our progress from last week and plan out the coming week. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned AI system to big tech AI systems. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm Dave Jones, and I handle the tech side of the operations here at BrainDrive.
BrainDrive is an MIT licensed local AI system, which means you can run it completely on your computer and under your complete ownership and control. You don't even have to have an internet connection. You can run everything completely privately on your computer. What you're seeing here just a little tell me a joke chat that is could be running completely without an internet connection if we weren't live streaming here. And I can chat with this just like I would chat with a chat GPT, but with a huge difference is that this was privately running on my own computer under my complete ownership and control. But it doesn't stop there. You can still access state of the art models. As you can see here, this chat is with OpenAI's latest chat model, GPT 5.2, via the Open Router plugin. There's no obligation to chat with API-based models, but we have an Open Router plugin that allows you to do so if you wish. We also have a persona system. So as you can see here, I've got my persona set to pirate, and this allows you to set a custom system prompt so you can tailor whether it's a role play type situation or a assistant that you want to do research for you, whatever you want, you can dial these AI models in and make them completely your own. So as you can see here, this one's just a little talk like a pirate. So it responds like a pirate. It's just a little example there. We also now have, and will soon be live on our plugin marketplace, a chat with your documents, or otherwise known as a retrieval augmented generation system. And this allows you to ground your conversations within a custom collection of documents. Here I have my BrainDrive white paper as just an example here. And this is residing again completely privately on my own computer. So if you have a HIPAA requirement or a lawyer, or you just don't want anyone seeing your private information, you don't, once you download, install BrainDrive and put the models in, you can disconnect it from the internet and never connect it to the internet again. And it's all running privately on your computer. So as you can see, what is BrainDrive is grounded completely in that white paper document, and it gives a very comprehensive overview that's grounded from that document. And it doesn't stop there. Dave's made this system so it's a modular plugin based architecture. So you can build and launch your own plugins. Everything you've seen here is built on this modular plugin based architecture. You build them, you deploy them on your own GitHub. So those are also under your complete ownership and control. And then we have a what you see is what you get page builder that allows you to just drag and drop and create all sorts of custom pages. That, of course, includes chat, but you can even create custom games here, like this BrainDrive Craft game here. So the sky's the limit. Whatever AI-powered application you want to build, you can build it on BrainDrive and not be extracted by big tech platforms. Own and control everything yourself. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to give us the development progress update from last week.
Okay. Well, last week we managed to close out a few of our paths that we were working on. The first one, of course, being the installer. We finally got Navneet some time so he could help me out. Uh, finish up the Mac. I know almost nothing about Mac, just except for my little playing around. So he was able to get in there and say, nope, this is the way Mac really works. And he can code as well. So we could, talk the same language and figure out what needed to happen. And then we got that stapled and notarized by Apple very quickly now that we're all in that system and process. So that's up on our GitHub for the installer. So anybody with a Windows or a Mac can easily pull down the installer and just without going to a single terminal, handle everything for them. So that's good news for everybody without the tech skills to play in a terminal and be like, thank God. Those kind of, because even for
Yeah.
me, it's like when I'm testing something, I use the installer. I'll be a blunt. It's like it's too easy. It's like if I want to test a plugin on a brand new BrainDrive, I just grab the installer. 5 minutes later, it's installed. I don't have to worry about anything. I can even take the moment to either do something else, go take care of something I need to take care of, come back, it's installed, run the plugin and either be happy or unhappy with that.
And
Uh,
that's one thing I forgot is our docs at
yep,
BrainDrive.ai site where you have your owner's manual, you have your CLI instructions, and soon the installers Dave's talking about, which are the one-click installers, will
yep,
be live at BrainDrive.ai. Under here, install BrainDrive. The Windows installer is already live there, and we'll get
yep.
the Mac installer up. And then we have our community at community.braindrive.ai where you can go for support.
Okay, now going back in, we got the security done. We are looking at from local to also doing we'll call it hosting for lack of better words. The ability for you not just to have it in your local environment, but if you want to access it anywhere easily without worrying about Tailscale or some other functionality like that that you may not be privy to, you can just put it on your hosting plan that you have, or we might have one at some point. You could utilize that one very easily. But with that comes a greater security concern. So we've already started taking steps of looking at it from not of just a local where the isolation is the fact that nobody can get into your home network 9 times out of 10 anyways. Instead, we're buttoning everything up, going through security protocols, making sure the endpoints have authorization contracts, and we're starting to move through that into logging, hopefully this week. But that is definitely on our near-term radar because once we have the security started, the logging started, that way we can be preemptively of seeing issues and even issues that we may not be seeing right now. Because like Dave uses BrainDrive, but he doesn't have the console up like I do all the time. So he would be able to catch if something is not behaving correctly in the log. And we want that to get as easy as you just go to your profile. If you have an issue, go to your profile. It displays all the information you would send in it, what we would call like a debug packet. You can view it. It's all in plain text, so you know what you're sending out, and you can easily hand that over to us and say, "Hey, I had a problem," and you don't
Yeah,
have
and
to.
that's really important with a local AI system that's under your complete
Yep,
ownership and control because unlike these big tech SaaS systems where you're a user and that SaaS company is the owner and they have therefore access to all your
yep,
stuff, BrainDrive is built so it's under your complete ownership and control. So Dave's trying to set it up so we can still provide support,
yep.
but whether or not what information you send us for that support or whether or not you send anything is your decision to send those logs, et cetera. So that's an important component that allows us to provide support.
Yeah, and we're already going to have it set up so that it won't expose API keys or anything like that. But you'll be able to take a look anyway, so you can actually visualize, see, hey, okay, I'm sending, these guys this type of information. We're not worried about your prompts, so we're not worried about that kind of stuff. What we really need is version numbers. What version number are you on BrainDrive Core? What version number are you plugins? And what issue you had? Because with that, I can go through and duplicate whatever experience you had an issue with, and that's the first key to any resolution is me being able to duplicate it. So that really speeds up the process without me being in GitHub every time going, can you tell me your version numbers? So that'll just handle it very quickly for us. Um, and then we've started working on, I'll just simply call it in my list, it's my AI team build. And that is going to be a daunting process, but you have to start somewhere. So we just got I don't want to call it a mini PC, only because they're from mini forums. It's not really, it has a pretty good size to it. But we plan on each one of those will be able to be 3 active employees at any instant. And then you can have other employees that sit by and they're down, but you can interchange. It's limited based on RAM and memory and resources on an individual on how many they could be running at any one time. But having 3 basically Upwork employees that can be specialized to anything you want and leveraging AI to probably the next level that most companies are even tackling at this point.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I would equate this to kind of like building out a team of humans, right? Like
yep,
you have to sort of take 2 steps back to take 5 steps forward, right? Because you have to do the hiring, you have to spend the time doing the hiring, you have to write all the job descriptions, you have to onboard and train. And we still do some of that too, but with the AIs, it's a similar process, right? You got to
yep.
get the machine, you got to set up the machine, you got to set up the environment, but I think the difference with the AI system is once you get it all set up, it's just there and running 24/7.
Yeah, and for the tech people using Proxmox to handle the bare metal installation, and then on top of that, having virtual machines that will handle each of the different employees or team members, if however we want to label them at the moment. I always give things names, and that way they just make sense in my head. And since I always go with like Dave, how'd you pick Darby? And I was like, it was just the name that popped up. But if you go with those kind of things, it's like instantly for you. It is a person you just met, they have a name, and then all of a sudden you can build the mental associations. And so that when I'm out for a walk or thinking about it like that, I can always think in terms of, okay, Darby has this installed. This is what Darby does. And so if I'm going to fix XYZ, I can just know right off that goes to Darby. And this is how we want to accomplish that. And that was part of what I was working on the weekend was slowing down, going through it meticulously, not trying to be David the coder, because that's me getting my hands dirty, looking at code and all like that, but more of what do I tell the AI to do? What does it give me back? Let's build some structure around that so it's less in the moment and letting it be a case by case basis, but more of a general, this is how you accumulate the information you need to do your job, just like I was telling somebody else to do it. So that's
Yeah,
what
the
we're,
onboarding process.
yep, it is really. It's like, and it's funny. It's like doing it. It's like I catch myself because there's so many things that I do without thinking. It's just do this, do that, and so to slow myself down. I showed Dave on Friday. I was like, I took our one of our lists that we had coming out of last week. We had 8 issues that we wanted to resolve for rag polishing. They hit everything from 2 different plugins and the core. So they were all over the place. So we would need different jobs being handed out. And instead of me tackling one at a time like I normally do, I went at it from approaches I have 8 to do. I'm going to do them at once. So it forces me to slow down and make sure that every step that I take goes through the entire 8 in one fell swoop of if we're on phase 1, let's build a type of accumulate information. One prompt goes through, it handled it all. Now we need to build a plan. Now we need to build the GitHub information so we can actually handle those things correctly. Because at the end of the day, I want all 8 to go streaming through. And at the end, it says, hey, I'm ready to push this up to GitHub and resolve these issues. That's success for me.
And that's, I think it's an engineer, it's a software engineering system, architecture, design, et cetera.
Hmm.
But I think this same, system architecture is going to be the same for all knowledge work,
Yep.
right? That you're doing with AIs.
Yep.
And, I also don't think that this is like a one and done. I think this becomes like the operating system of the organization. And just like you wouldn't build a piece of software and it is what it is,
Hmm.
you're constantly upgrading and learning and integrating back in to improve that system.
Yeah, that's where it's like, because the key thing is not to let the AI think for you, because that's where you get into trouble, but rather you do the thinking and it executes. So like we had our list of 8 things, and we had stuff that we knew based on verbiage. It was delete collection. I knew what delete collection meant. Dave knew what it meant, but when I gave it to the AI in that just the whole list, and let's see what you do with that. It was really wrong. I mean, embarrassingly wrong. If I had did anything executed off that, I'd have been done. So it was like that moment of, okay, this is where the human pops in. This is where, okay, we can't just have our little 2 words. This is what we're doing. This is what a collection is. This is what system it belongs to, and any information it needed. So it turned delete collection into a 3 sentence job description of this is what we're resolving right here. And then this is the project that it references, which is the BrainDrive RAG and the BrainDrive chat service, because I had to tell it you need to check the chat service to determine if it has endpoints to delete in the first place. If it doesn't, we're making them. So it has to be able to, I do the thinking, and it should get to the point where in this little process where I say, okay, execute.
It's a
And this is,
collaborative process,
yep,
right? So you're not just designing the system and then like you never have to code again. First off, the fact that you're a coder allows you to design an effective system if you
yep,
weren't a coder, right? And then the second thing is like you have to provide that vision, you have to provide that feedback, you have to, set the tests up. So it's not like developers are going away. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah, no, no. And in fact, Hey, in fact, I said this early on with AI. It's like it's only going to make you better at you. If you're lazy and you sit on the couch and you don't want to code, guess what? It's not going to all of a sudden become the best coder on the planet Earth. If you can really do something well, though, it's going to turn you into a times 10 machine. Literally, that's my view on you have to always be in the loop. You have to be the one thinking of the innovation, especially how do we make this better? How do we tackle this problem? And then you tell the AI, hey, I'm going to go do this again somewhere else. You start working and we'll get back to each other in about 15 minutes. Be-
Yeah.
because that's where we get to where we're talking probably about 8 months ago. What would make this better? And my first response was a dashboard. Because now, if I look at it from using Proxmox, VMs, specific tasks, and being able to report just as a human would, because that's how it would be developed, I should be able to move to one dashboard that would show it all. If a VM picked up and started doing work, it would be able to reflect immediately and say, hey, Darby's running. This is what Darby is doing, and this is what process it's on
Can
in
we
that
build
task.
that dashboard in BrainDrive?
Sure. There's nothing stopping where, and it's already working in BrainDrive. So it just, in those cases, I was already thinking about this. All I would need to do is you build the team because you would have it'd be a blank screen. Here's team number one at this IP. You
Yeah.
can talk to it. It knows the endpoints that it needs to talk to figure out what it's going on, what plan. Because on the dashboard, I want to be able to just be able to click something and say, let me see where in the plan it's at a moment's notice without even flipping screens. Why? That's
Yeah,
boring.
and I was thinking, because Claude came out with or Anthropic came out with the co-work thing,
Yep.
and I'm like, they're having to like turn a lot of back flips because it's a SaaS, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That I feel like because BrainDrive runs locally under your complete ownership and
Yep.
control in the same environment where your coding agents are running,
You
we
you
can do a lot of stuff that they're not going to be able to
eh,
do with the interface, right?
yes.
And keeping people out of the terminal.
Yep. And that's my view is like I don't want to be in the terminal for this kind of stuff. I don't it's like I want that to tell me where I need to be in that instance. So
Yeah.
that if it's running, I don't need to waste time like email. How many people check emails throughout the day? I don't even want to do that. I want to
Yeah,
just
and
see
even
something
if
on the
you do
screen.
need to jump in the terminal, but you're in BrainDrive, you're chatting, it's like, hey, you need to jump in the terminal to this. Oh, what's the terminal? Hey, just I see you're on a Mac with a Windows, blah blah
Yep.
blah, or you're on Windows, whatever. Do this, do that, paste this command in, you're good to go.
Yep,
You know,
exactly. To be able to leverage that kind of functionality, and that's of course when you get to that far, we're probably talking at least a year away down this system. The first part is let's map out what we do.
a
Let's get.
month.
Yep, there you go, a month. Hey, I'd love it. I see no reason. It's like I'm already because you and I tackled this problem from very different. You're at the very beginning of it, building the directory structure that we need for all the information and like that. Me, I'm at the end. I'm already starting to look at what agents will be necessary, like managing GitHub information. How do you check for if a new issue popped up? How do you determine if we're working on it? How do we determine now that we're done working on it? Let's go ahead and do a commit. Let's build a PR. Do we have to have that name? Those kind of
Well,
things.
I'm also just wondering, with open code, if that's really good, which I've heard not a lot, several software engineers that I follow, like the
Mhm.
guy that built Basecamp and stuff, is
Yep.
like, open code's my coding agent. So I don't think he'd be using it if it wasn't legit.
Yep.
And it's open source,
Hmm.
right? And like being able to hook BrainDrive into other projects, I feel like might get us there a lot faster, right? So we don't have to build the coding agent.
Yep.
We focus on the front end, and we hook BrainDrive's back it, we hook up another like you
Mhm.
did. I know you built all the RAG stuff, but
Yep.
like if there was a RAG system that had already been built that we liked, we could have just plugged into that.
Yep. And we almost did similar to it because we had somebody else working on the rag beforehand. When we opted to change direction a little bit, my mentality was, hey, we liked the results we've seen. We just needed to work for us. So we
Yeah,
did almost the same thing. We took something that somebody else did that wasn't quite what we wanted and just bent it to our will, made it ours.
right.
Open code could be that. It could be a service that sits just like a RAG or a document chat, document process that ready to be used. And if you have the AI coding something for you, such as like if we got to the plugin builder or something like that, that develops plugins for you from an interface, it would just be sitting there at that moment. You press a button, it gathers the code from open code, puts it in the structure that a plugin needs to be put into, and then says, "Hey, we're ready to build, ready to go." It's like that, and with leveraging some scripts in a better way that I already have developed, like an auto installer, so it can test, and then you can say, "Hey, I've installed this. The test went through, the plugin went through fine." You can see it in your plugin manager if you wish to go view it and see if it's everything you dreamed of.
The other reason why I'm very optimistic about this, and maybe there's something I'm missing, is I'm using playing with Claude Code because everybody's playing with
Yep.
Claude Code right now, and we don't want to be locked into Claude Code, which is why, we're talking about open code, but there's just a lot more resources for a novice out there right now for Claude Code. So I'm
Yep.
learning coding with coding agents with Claude Code with all the resources. And then I'm gonna get on a call with Dave for a day and he's gonna show me how to do it all in open code or Codex or
Yep.
whatever. So we're not, we should be tool agnostic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm saying is I never touch a piece of code.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just chatting in the
Yep.
terminal, right? And to me, you can chat with BrainDrive now.
Yep.
So, you
That's
know,
we're that close, right? I mean, at the end of the
and so
day.
yeah, if you don't, I know if you need to like pop up code and do
Yep.
code and stuff in BrainDrive, we're a ways away from doing that perhaps. But just getting back a chat message and going back and forth, I
I
mean,
I got to say this, and I did something. It was like not. It was just a test to see if I could almost be you. I'm not touching the code. And that's what because that's what this is going to take. It's going to I nobody has David sitting there coding for them. So I
right,
have to be you. I have to be somebody who doesn't understand code
right.
to make sure this is doing that. And this is and Codex because that's what my preference is. I never touched a single piece of code. It built a small CLI for me, a command line interface, ran them, tested them. I had it to the point where I made it run a test, see if it worked. If it didn't work, fix it. If it did work, take a look at the current code structure, come up with a feature that improves it, do the feature, and then retest that. And I wanted to do it 5 times, and it ran smoothly without ever blinking. It came up with features that probably I wouldn't have. One of them was like just dumb, but that's what you get when you have somebody else in charge, and it would not like that. But you wouldn't do that. But the idea was, can you code without me touching you? Because
Right.
that's what's going to be asked right there at the end of the day.
I
For that,
think
yeah,
I think the answer is sort of if you're trying to do if the map is anywhere, you can
yep,
go with code, it's
yep,
sort of, right?
yes,
But I think if we're talking about BrainDrive and BrainDrive
yep,
plugins, 100% once you've set up a good system, you
yep,
know what I mean? That's going to be the key where you log into BrainDrive, you download the BrainDrive code plugin, whatever it is,
yep,
that sets up your backend and open code or whatever that ends up being,
yep,
and you start talking to it and it's got all the context. This is what BrainDrive is, this is the architecture, this is what a plugin is, this is the plugin template, this is the blah blah blah. And it's setting all that stuff up and it's just a back and forth chat in the BrainDrive front end.
yeah. But it was smooth. There were no issues. It was able to, like I said, if you do the front work and you know to tell it, this is, hey, you're going to fix any issues that you encounter. These are the resources that you have available, and you do all the stuff that I would normally do. That if we did the plugin and when we get to doing that, will be automatic. You won't even have to say behave like Dave.
Right.
You'll
So why is that a long ways off?
No, no, I'm not saying it's a long. Oh, no, no. I'm saying we're already there because
Yeah,
I didn't. This was because I was like, I would come into my office this weekend, I would see what it did, and I would give it
well, I'm
instructions.
saying like what's the blocker of having that interaction take place in the brain drive front end if you have all the stuff that you're working with in the back end or
Just
running as a service?
there's only a little piece of what I would call proof of concept, and that is because open code suffers from the same thing that Claude Code and Codex does. They are all currently existing on for lack of better words, a human interface right now. So it rather than drop to what I would call an API model, which would be easy, but then we recode everything. We just need to build a layer that says, I'm working with Codex, I'm working with open code, I'm working with Claude. This is how I open up a process, which is where it runs. I'm going to give it a command as if I was Dave Waring or Dave Jones, and it goes right into the same type of interface. So it uses all the technology that's there. We don't have to reinvent it or anything. And then it waits for the output, and then it either A, reacts on the output if it was waiting for it so it can do another task in the reasoning process, or it hands it back to you and says, hey, we're done. If you want me to build this, I'll build this now. Because it has us coding it by hand, we'd be there forever. Us leveraging these three people with massive code teams, that's where we gain our money right there.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of building that little layer, because that's what this weekend was. What would be required and what would be the best move? Are we recoding ourselves or are we leveraging somebody else's tech? And for me, we're leveraging on this because that was pretty smooth. Yeah, the layer is nothing more than what we've done a few times, like the installer. We took our install process, built a layer that automated it. We just got to build a little smart little pieces, and this thing will run like silk.
Amazing. All right. Cool. And we're talking with Navaneeth tomorrow, who we asked to see if he could do what Dave's talking about on Claude Code,
Yep.
where we can have a template or a plugin skill set for Claude Code for people who want to use Claude Code to build on BrainDrive. Because, ultimately, we don't want you to have to be locked into a Claude Code or a Codex or whatever. But if you want to use Codex, Claude Code, et cetera, to build things, we want you to have the freedom and ability to do that. And again, because Claude Code's so hot right now, why not, give people the tools that they need to build on BrainDrive via Claude Code? And that way you can have all of your applications, et cetera, in one. Because I started building all these things, and it's like I even forget where they're deployed. You know what I mean? And so,
Because it's so
so
easy. You don't have to set it up anymore. You just click a button, you have to deploy that. Go ahead, do that
yeah,
for
and
me.
but with BrainDrive, I can have everything, here under my pages and eventually different folders and stuff. So all the applications that I'm building for my personal software live on my BrainDrive, and I just log into one place, use them all here, and then also they'll all talk to each other,
Yep.
and like this would become an ecosystem that's serving me, which is going to be amazing. So I think like Dave and I were talking a little bit before the call, like everything's really starting to come together, both in terms of where we are from a development standpoint with BrainDrive, but also where the broader market and capabilities are with these coding agents, et cetera. Like I think we're in a really good spot.
And this sums up something I read this weekend. IBM put out their CEO put out their 4-year forecast of AI. And from that was a very a statement that should resonate for a lot of people, but I know especially for us it does, where it states that AI won't support just businesses anymore. It'll actually define them. And that's where I think where it's like it would hit because where we are right now. We're
Yeah,
we're we're hitting that definition stage of how AI is going to make us as a company and as team and build. And that's it's
absolutely.
right where we are right now.
It's going to be the operating system of the business. And instead of organizational design with people, it'll be organizational design first with AI and then layering the people on top of
Yep.
that. And AI is going to be the center of the organization and the coordination layer for the humans.
Yep. Sounds good to
Yeah.
me.
All right. Awesome. So what do we got? What are we thinking for the doc? Well, let me just so this is um you know, long weekend here, so doing the family time thing, but
Yep.
I was also really starting to get the coding agent and stuff, and I've been saving for this moment,
Okay.
which is
The drum
all of the
roll.
conversation because we're a remote company,
Yep.
so every conversation that we have is on Zoom
Hmm.
except the AI conversations, which is a lot of conversations that
Yep.
we are missing. But I've kept every single transcript from every single call that I've done. Dave and I, Navaneeth and I,
Yep.
previous people,
Yep.
etc. And I had Claude Code build a script to basically go through all of those transcripts and pull out any mention of projects or plugins or BrainDrive core or business stuff and create a history timeline of all of our conversations. So I have this history doc. Actually, let me not share in case there's something sensitive here
Yeah,
for a
because
minute.
I know you haven't been able to proofread it.
Yeah. So I have this, and I have to go through all. I did a lot of just sort of. I may trash everything that I built over the weekend because it was totally kind of autopilot. I didn't have time to like
Yep,
go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, but I was like, this will at least get my head around like how I want to do this
yep,
and be able to talk with Dave about it. So, we have this history.md file. It's going back all the way. This is just me and Dave. It goes all the way back to October of last year when we started working together. And each of these, actually, let me just stop sharing just in case. Let me find one that I know there's nothing private in. Um, yeah, here we go. So all the way up to our latest conversations. And so
yep.
as you can see here on the 23rd, we talked see there's a mistake already. On the 16th, Dave demonstrated an AI development workflow for automating project plans and task generation. Team discussed the AI file system, the library, that's this that we're looking at now. AI, what are the projects, AI installer, AI file system, etc. Right? And then here's the source transcript, which is now in this library.
Yep,
So the goal here, obviously I have to go through this because this is the wrong date. But the goal here is to have, you know, a timeline with enough snippet that you know what the call was about and
yep,
what projects were discussed, but not so much that it overwhelms the context window
yep.
for the AI to be able to search through that. And probably eventually, like certain things will go into like a longer term archive or whatever, so we can keep it, relatively recent conversations. But then I had, and again, I'm not saying this worked, but I'm
Yeah.
saying in terms of um, what I wanted to do is I had it, okay, anything that's in that, those transcripts, create a project folder. Well, first look and see if there's a project folder that exists for it because I
Mhm.
was already doing this and I moved some of my folders over. Create a project folder for it, right? And put any notes and transcripts and stuff about that project into the folder. So we're starting to like leverage all of the conversations
Yep,
that we've had from the past to bring this system as if we'd had this system the whole time, this context system that we want. Okay. And what I'm going for is, we move from idea through chip work through a chain of documents that get progressively more structured. And this is from a conversation. This is from that conversation that we just
yep.
looked at in the history file where Dave talked about his development process. And I told the AI, go through what Dave said. And it's like, all right, have a brain dump. I don't know if we actually need a template for this, but like it created a template, like what's the just sort of the brain dump of
Yep,
this, right? And then we have the interview process to dial in. The interview process kicks off once you have the brainstorm,
hmm,
and there's a skill, and it interviews you to dial in what is it that you actually want, and it's asking you a bunch of questions and back and forth, etc. Because Dave was talking about how he spends like a lot of times like 2 hours just talking with the AI to like
yep,
really dial in the plan. And then you have the spec. And so once you've got the interview, you can kick off the spec skill, right? It
yep.
reviews all the interview stuff and it creates this template, which we'll have to dial in with
Y-
Dave. But what is this thing? Why are we building it? Who's it for? How are they going to use it, etc. And then and it puts that document together, and then it builds the build plan. So this is, what are the tech stuff and review the spec. What's the technical requirements, the architecture, the phases, the testing, all that type of stuff is going to be well defined. And this is like, you know, um, everything you need. The idea here is everything you need to kick off and like the if you were sending a senior engineer off to work on this project, they'd
Yep.
have all the context that they would need to go off and build this. And also, like, I think, initially there's going to be a lot of human in the loop, but like, I think as we get better, and especially as we're building on BrainDrive, like even a lot of the testing can be automated, right?
Yep.
Because you can hook. This is another beautiful thing about BrainDrive operating in the browser, even though it runs locally. The coding agents can look in the browser now. You can hook it up via Playwright. It can do the testing,
Hmm.
etc. And then Dave went over like how he thinks about issues, like if it's a bug, once something's been developed. So we'll have a template and a skill for that to create that document. And then the session capture. So I built this, I built,
Yep.
the AI built this capture skill that I can just trigger in, and this will still work outside of Claude, even though it's a Claude skill that I'm using. I use it with a slash command, but it's just a file with like a prompt in it,
Yep.
basically, so we can use it. So anytime I finish, um, a coding session within Claude Code, I just hit the capture after I do commit, capture, push, and commit, and that, capture, commit, and push, and
Y-
that captures everything, puts that in, stages that, and then commits all the changes, including the stuff that's captured based on, creating the transcript, updating any decisions. Right. What I want to work on next is action items and how do they get generated and kept track of and everything. And that's like that goes back to also the retro, which is what do we learn from this that we can
Yep.
apply to improve our coding system. That's that compounding effect on that. And then what's the last? Is there anything else? Yeah, and that's it. That's like the full flow from like new idea all the way to live and even resolving bugs and all that type of
Yeah,
stuff.
and really not creating a new system. It's just capitalizing on what we already
This
do.
is this
Eh,
is it's built off of the
yeah.
conversation where you walk through all your stuff and basically what that's what we want to do within these folders here is we want to have this is when we kick off. This little scout thing might be a good one to look at real quick. So when we kick off um, a coding session where the agent is going to be coming in with fresh context, each of these, like we should start here in the project folder. We should have a really well-defined agent MD that tells it all about, that gives the summary, where are all the documents, how does the thing work, what are we focused on, if there's any blockers. So this is just like the AI reads this, looks at whatever documents and transcripts, et cetera, it wants to look at, and then it's like, it's ready to go,
Yep.
because here's the build plan for this project. I'm constantly gathering Twitter posts and articles and those types of things that are relevant to the work that we're doing.
Hmm.
So I built this little thing that hooks up to our GitHub with read-only access, this projects folder, and I want to put an article in, and it goes through the projects and pulls out anything from the article that might be relevant to the projects that we're working on, and then gives me the ability to chat back and forth. So I built this plan, using this process. And then, well, first I did this interview in the spec
Yep.
document, and built the spec document, simple web, this is the architecture of it. And it should have captured in the library. But yeah. So when I do the capture, like it puts all of the, I don't know where this 2035 is coming from, but anyway, you get the idea of what this will look like. Is this is like all of our January transcripts, but it's not just me and Dave now. It's like all of these. This is all the
Yep.
stuff, all the transcripts of like spec building. This is all the stuff we just talked about. It's all the like I was just going back and forth with the conversation where Dave walked me through his workflow process and just going back and forth with the AI. All the transcripts are here. you
Which is
know?
important because I can tell you that's why when we were talking about what do we want to capture, one of the big things for me was the amount of conversations I have with an AI, and I've always had them since AI started, because it's like it allows you to get out of your head and actually prove whether something works. And I can no longer use Google to go, oh my God, does this tech do XYZ? I can, and because now we're there to that point where it's like you can go check a web page. If it sounds wrong, you can go check it yourself. Because that's where I think I'm very critical humans in the loop. Because I was just what happens. I was doing the Codex thing, and I wanted to leverage Codex as a human, but code wise, programmatically, instead of and it was like there, nope, you can't do this. And it was telling me time and time again, I had to hand it the GitHub repo and say, read the README file, and then we can continue this conversation. And then I said, okay, you're right. You can do this. This is how we'll tackle this. And this is how you can now do what you wanted to do. And so it was like, you always have to be aware, be conscious. And that's why capturing all that information is important because when you go to the side, it goes off on its own tangent, you can track down, okay, where was that mistake made and what could have I done in that moment to make sure that we didn't make the
Yep.
mistake.
And
Yep.
improve that, get that flywheel spinning faster and faster.
Yep.
So then just one last thing here. At the end of the day, I wanted to kick off a digest where it talks, it just gives a summary and we'll hook this to the forums and it'll just show like what work was done today within the project. What were the key decisions that were made, and that way Dave can look at this and be like, you've messed this up and that's not what I said and blah blah blah, right? And I did a lot. I mean, I did a lot. The coding agents did a lot, over the weekend. So I think this is especially long. Like I did 40 commits over the weekend. So and also this should be 2 days and not one. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff I have to work out here, but that's what I
Yep.
was telling Dave before the call. Is like we just need to sit on the Zoom for a couple hours and go through this and get his feedback, and then I think I can dial it in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like all these systems. It doesn't matter whether you're and this is an AI company. This is any two people, any team, and like that. It's like when you the first time you do a workflow, there will be issues, guaranteed. It doesn't matter. Just because this is the AI, it doesn't mean that's because it's an AI. It's anytime you collaborate. So you
Yeah.
have to have that. Okay, we did something. This is what was wrong. Let's figure it out. This is what was
Well, and
right.
also what I really needed to do is go through the timeline, not with a fine-tooth comb,
Yeah.
but look for all those obvious things,
Yep.
improve that, then do the next step where I didn't have time to do that, so I just kicked off the next step. But like now I know, even if I have to hit the delete button on everything that I've did, I can go through it so much faster now
Yep.
because I know exactly what I want to do. And that's like, I think also something with working with the AIs is like you delete,
Yep.
and then you start from scratch and then you get to where you want to go because
As
you can
long
do
as you
that
learned, you
prototyping.
didn't waste time. That's
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
message that everybody should get is like, don't be afraid to go, oh, that's an effing mess. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and start over.
Yeah. But I'm like, and it's cool. Dave and I not only have the same name, but we definitely mind meld on this stuff
Yeah.
because like we both like
Yeah, because
activated on
Friday
we've
we
been
were
talking
talking.
about this, but we
Yeah,
both kind of activated on it at the same time,
yeah, 'cause that's how Friday was. He was like he was starting at the beginning, and that's because that's where his brain usually as marketing and business, and me being a coder in the trenches. I'm always like I'm already looking at how are we going to interact with GitHub? Is that going to MCP or is that just going to be code fired off by something else? You know,
Yeah.
the forums, how we're going to get the information out of there so that when something comes up in a conversation, it can automatically alert Dave or myself that hey, we need to post that video here. So because that's where it belongs and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So, I know we have a lot of polishing to do on BrainDrive and we don't want to get distracted with shiny objects, but my intuition is this system is going to be the thing that allows us to just absolutely accelerate to the moon in terms of
Yeah,
speed and execution.
because
So
the
I think,
faster we get to that end result of that plan, that's when it's like then we go to where I am, where the coding takes place,
yeah.
and I'm managing 9 different coders at once and stuff like that, and then the world's
So I
perfect.
think we just like prioritize this system this week. And like, I think obviously, like I said in the beginning of the call, we're not going to have a final system, but like, I think if we really put our heads down and get on some longer calls this
Mhm.
week, you and I, that like we can have the V1 of this system, like that we're actually using
Yep. We're taking
Like
that
by the end of
finished
the week.
plan, yeah, for that finished plan and start utilizing those so that we can start we can make sure that what's coming before that we did is actually workable because that's going to
Yeah.
need to happen. And then turning it around, now let's turn that into an automation center as well.
Yeah.
Let's take that
Because
plan and work.
and that's not only going to allow you and I to just iterate the core team, you, me, and
Yep.
Navneet to uh, iterate so much faster and develop so much faster. But it's also going to, I think, be the foundation that BrainDrive Code, which is going to be our coding agent that specifically for BrainDrive is going to be built on. Like we're kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, because that was where it was like we've said since day one we want to be the WordPress of AI, but I don't think we want to have the same bottleneck where we're
Right.
waiting for humans to do everything because Katie has ideas. And if Katie could come to a website, BrainDrive Builder or whatever the name's going to be, and go, you know what? I have an idea for a plugin. I'm going to try this myself.
Yeah.
Eh,
And not to get too crazy, but I think Brain Drive eventually can be a completely automated project because most of the work is happening at the plugin layer. And I
Mhm.
think eventually, maybe not right now, but eventually not needing a human in the loop to approve a plugin for the marketplace because it
Yep,
really just needs to. And I think if they follow this process, like it has a spec, it has a build plan, it has the interview, the AI can understand all that type of stuff. It's valuable. They have good user stories, blah, blah, blah.
yep,
That's like the usefulness, like so we don't just clog the marketplace with a bunch of crap or
yep,
slop or whatever. And then there is the automated security check, which eventually I think the AI can do. So the plugin marketplace can be a self AI
yep.
managed thing completely eventually. And then with changes to BrainDrive Core, it's really like adding a new API most of the time, which,
Or
right?
resolving an issue that somebody, yeah, just small stuff like that. We would take a look as humans. What do we want to see for next version?
Yeah.
Sorry, next versions and stuff like that. But for that right there working version that everybody's using, that's maintenance mode right there. That is, somebody found an issue, we clean it up. Features and stuff like that, we won't be touching because they get pushed off to the next version and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, the maintenance, we would not have a team of humans. We would have a team of AI bots that are watching for issues, automatically figuring out the references necessary to make it happen, coming up with a small plan of how it would fix this issue, and then a human, me, going, okay, I like that plan or don't like that plan, or let's do XYZ for this, and then saying go. And then by the time
Yeah,
somebody,
but I think I definitely now, if
yeah,
we could get to that, that's amazing. But I think you can design an AI that does what you
yep,
just said.
yes,
Like
no,
if it
like I said,
has access to all, especially as the project gets bigger,
yeah,
the AI should know better than we do eventually.
yep,
All of the things that are going on, all the things people are asking about, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like someone submits a new API to the back end,
yep.
right? It's going to know where are the dependencies, where's this and that. Does this fit within the ownership, all that type of stuff. And, obviously, eventually we'll have to be the approvers of that,
Yep.
but like the AI can learn from the stuff
Everything
that
that's happened. Yep.
we're approving and not approving. And I just think that eventually this could be almost an autopilot.
Where you get a
Um,
recommendation from the AI for like you or me and says, yes, this should be approved based on what I found here, here, here. It follows our full four pillars. There's nothing, no red flags. And where I've already been thinking of like for plugins, we'll have something similar to Apple where we have stapling so that we can enhance security and people can have a little more confidence. And out of the wild, wild west type a little bit. I mean, you can have both. You can install anything you want, but some type of mechanic that when the AI hits it and the user hits it, they can go, that's stapled. I know that's safe. I don't have to worry about anything right there.
right.
It's
And
like,
then
so
even like on the net, and this is like now we're a little bit like, way out there. But, we've talked about since the beginning integrating blockchain in
yep,
and an economy, et cetera. And like the AI is like deciding, okay, how like so many people want this, and these people say they'll pay for it, blah, blah, blah. If someone builds this or someone's AI builds this or
yep.
whatever, you get this amount of cryptocurrency
Yep.
and like that's the economy, on top of it, and that's all automated by the AI too. And we're
Yep.
we're still involved, but like you said at the beginning of the call, we're watching the system and making sure that the system design is correct. And when it makes a decision that we don't agree with,
Yep.
we go in and we adjust the system.
Yep. That's why having all that information is important because it allows us to go backwards very easily instead of, I don't know what it did or why it did
Well,
it.
and even for our conversations, like because we talk so much, it's like we'll come up with something, and maybe we are like the chat, for like just talk to it.
Yep.
If we had the AI going, it'd been like, do you guys talked about just
Yeah.
talking to this thing? Like, do you want to build it this way? Like, oh yeah, we did talk about
Yeah.
that. Like, let's do it that way.
Yeah. Something's finally capturing every whimsical conversation we've had, and that's going to become a long list somewhere.
Yeah. But we have it. Like I
Yep.
have every single transcript. Like the only conversation between you and I that I don't have is when you came to my house and we sat on the couch and
Yep.
talked. And we probably should have captured that too. And I think that's actually a huge advantage until like the pens and all that type of stuff and recording all the
Yep.
time becomes a little less
Normal pace.
taboo.
Yep. Yeah.
A huge advantage of having an remote company
Yep.
and is having all the transcripts for everything. Because
Yeah.
no one
Because
gives a shit if you record a Zoom call.
yep. And like I said, the AI conversations equal part of importance. When you can put both those together, it's just going to probably be lights out for what we can do.
Oop. I always like to check the chat just in
Yeah.
case. And whenever I do that, it flips
Here's
back
some
over.
sound.
Yeah. So I think this week is all about dialing the
Yep.
system in and getting your coding agents up and running on your end and all that. And I think if you can feed me like even if it's messy, like if I can get access to like the folders and or the documents that you showed me for
Oh, yeah.
template
Yep.
building and all that type of stuff, I can like do a lot of the grunt work and then we can look at it together. You can say, nope, this, that, that. I don't even think you'll because I'll just feed that transcript to the AI too, and
Yeah.
we can get those
Yeah, we
documents
could because I have
exactly
a
how you want
preliminary one for a template that I'm already using for AI's building plans, what it needs to know. There are some differences like what I already seen on yours, and so it's important to add those little differences. And then I will know this week as I put that template to a test and how well it did. And like I say, just the experience that we've had of a year of doing this with AI is like there's certain things like you have to tell it what not to do too,
Yeah,
not just what to do. That's why you need
yeah.
the in scope, out of scope features, little things like that. But yeah, this week we should definitely make steps in that direction. Um,
Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to talk about today for the live stream?
I'd love, hopefully, maybe we can see Docker for next Monday. I'd love to
Okay.
see Docker for an install, because a lot of things that I'm working on is basically like watching the AI do it. So I do need something to keep me busy, and the Docker is a very hands-on thing because it's either perfect or a disaster.
Yeah.
And so that's going to require a little testing. But I think the Docker is going to be a very important step for a lot of people, like we've said, because our initial you have the Pete, privacy Pete in the middle, and you have the all tech people. You hand them a Docker, and they'll be like, "Duh, I can run this in seconds." Then,
Right. Awesome. All right, great. Unless there's anything else with that, reminder, we do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So we'd love it if you join us here for the live stream. All are welcome to participate. We also post the recordings over on our community forums at community.braindrive.ai. And we'd love it if you participate there as well. The community's free to join. And reminder that our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user owned alternative to big tech AI systems. And with that, we'll see you.